True wisdom is less presuming than folly. The wise man doubteth often, and changes his mind. The fool is obstinate, and doubteth not. He knoweth all things, but his own ignorance. And that quote came from the Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten. And I'm sure there's a lot of listeners out there who understand why a quote from Akhenaten may well indeed hold some relevance in these troubled times that we are in our present history. Welcome to Surviving the Matrix. My name is Maxwell Igan. Now, as you might recall last week, I was quoting and running around and commenting on an article for the first half of the show by Michel Chossudovsky. Now, I did this to try to explain to you from an international perspective what sort of a position the New World Order Illuminati mechanism have moved themselves into. We're in a position now where Obama is virtually king of the Western world. But then to understand what that really means, you've also got to look at that and realise that Obama is simply a figurehead. He doesn't have any real power. He is simply the figurehead of this Illuminati mechanism. The power lies with the people who put him there to begin with. And if you want to know who put him there, well, a great quote comes to mind actually by Baron Nathan Mayer Rothschild, who said in reference to England, "I care not what puppet is placed upon the throne of England to rule the empire. The man that controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the money supply." So when you understand that it's the banks that control the governments, it's not the governments that control the banks, then you know where the power lies. This is the mechanism that is used to control the Western world, to control all the world. So this is what it's all about. It's all about controlling the money supply of all of these nations, because when you control the money supply, you control the government. When you control the government, you control the people. This is how it works, folks. So this is why the money supply is always used. Now, when you understand that every central bank in every Western country is a private bank, these are all private banks that lend money to the government. They call them Federal Reserve, but they're not federal. They're only federal in name. They are the ones who lend money to the government. And all the taxes that you pay go to pay off the government's interest on the loan. This is how it works. This is how you are enslaved to debt, everybody. It's all run by a private bank, the whole thing. And these are the people who orchestrate all the wars. These are the people who keep you on the treadmill. And what they're doing with this war on terror is they are going out and they are taking over every country in the world that doesn't have a central bank. And they are locking down the civilians of their society as well, because they know that, well, pretty soon people are going to wake up and they're not going to be happy with what's going on. So this is why they want to microchip you. This is why they keep you dumbed down with chemicals. While they go out and take over the rest of the world, they use you to give them the power to do it, because you are the people who are making the guns, working in the factories, mining the resources, fighting in the wars. You see, they use the people of the nation to go out and do all their dirty work for them. And they don't do any of it. They keep people enslaved to debt so that the military is a good option for a lot of people. They promote it on the television and on the movies. They glorify war on all of the things that they teach people. They get young kids playing with guns and dressing up as soldiers, and everyone wants to be in the military. Gee, let's join the military. We'll get a good job and a good pension and we'll learn a trade. And they come back and they have limbs blown off, and you find that most of the homeless are ex-military, most of the disabled are ex-military. Some of the most downtrodden people in our society are ex-military. And if you ever have a serious problem from the military, we've seen the stories of people trying to get compensation out of the government. It's almost impossible. And all of these wars are fought for banks. All of these wars are fought for the banksters. They're not fought for the reasons that you think they're fought for. And God bless the soldiers. They're going out there thinking they're defending their country, but they're not. They're going out and they're invading other countries. They're not bringing any type of freedom or any real democracy to these countries, folks. What they're doing is they're going and installing puppet governments that run the country off a central bank. That's what they're doing. And the only reason they don't know they're doing this and don't realize they're doing this is because of the propaganda that they're fed by the governments. Now on a show late last year, I think it was, I had a bit of a talk about how the Nazis never actually lost the war and how the Nazis were simply like a special ops division of the Illuminati. And so if you put all this in perspective, folks, what you realise is that World War II was like a beta test, and I've said this to you before. World War II was a beta test. They tested all the mind control drugs. They tested all different ways they could control people. They tested how easy it would be to set up certain things and do certain things. They set up the State of Israel, which is basically a private army for the Rothschilds. Most of the so-called Jews in Israel are actually Western Europeans. I mean, it's a complete scam, the whole thing. They ran a beta test in World War II. Then they came out after World War II, a couple of generations ago, and they said, look, you all need fluoride in your water. You all need all of these food additives in your food. And they slowly took over all the food. They took over all the water. They started feeding you all sorts of chemicals and all sorts of things. Now all of these things that they feed you affect brain function. And I'm not insulting anybody here, and I'm not telling anybody they're stupid, but I'm telling you that what they are feeding you is affecting your brain. And this is why it's so hard for most people to figure out what's going on. But World War II is a beta test. And they came out and they formed the United Nations. And the United Nations has gone out under the guise of protecting the world and installing peace everywhere. It's gone out and had 258 conflicts in the last 60 years. 258 conflicts, folks. That's more wars than in Earth's recorded history. Now they've gone out and they've installed puppet governments all over the world. They've taken over resources. And now they want to microchip Western populations. Once they microchip you folks, they've got a back door into the computer. I mean, they're telling you it's just for your medical records to start off with. But I mean, come on folks, it's not just for your medical records. Pretty soon they're going to want to put everything on the chip, which is the plan. And then they can just turn your money supply on and off. Everything will be in digital credits. Every single thing you buy, you'll have to be scanned to buy. That's the way it is. So that means you're going to have to buy their products. You're going to have to buy their genetically modified food. You're going to have to buy all the things that they control. And if you don't, they'll just turn off your chip. And without the chip, you'll cease to exist. You'll just be a dissenter, a terrorist, an enemy combatant. That's what they are trying to do. Now you've got to understand that the same banking families that ran both sides of World War II, financed both sides of the war, are the same people who are financing this entire war on terror. It's been created with exactly the same scenario that they did in Germany. That was a test. See, they did the Reichstag. They burnt down the Reichstag and took over a country. This time, they've burnt down the Twin Towers and they're taking over the world. It's the same people, it's the same bloodline, it's the same financiers doing it again, folks. And it's happening because we're letting it happen. This whole war on terror is completely fake. It's absolutely fake. There is no division among the people of the world. We can easily fix this problem. All we have to do is realize what's happening and wake up and realize our connection to each other. But the thing is that there's a lot of people who want to use weapons. No, let's go and do it violently. Let's go and have a revolution. Well, that's not going to work, folks, because they've got better weapons. The way to do it is to put yourself in a state of love. And when I say that, I'm not talking about the television version of love. If you understand how energy works, folks, there's only two human emotions. There is literally only two real human emotions. Many derivatives of those two emotions, but only actually two human emotions. And that is love and fear. So when I'm saying put yourself in a state of love, I'm saying that because love is the opposite of fear. This is why I can speak out the way I do, because I don't have fear. Once you understand what the true nature of this reality is, what's to fear? What's to fear, folks? There's nothing to fear about standing up for your rights. And there's nothing to fear about us putting the world right and using love to do it. Even when you go and speak to a police officer, or you go and speak to a lawyer, you go and speak to a military person, go speak to anybody. Don't speak to the uniform. Speak to the person, because inside that uniform is a person that's operating in a state of fear. They're trying to put you in fear of them so they can feed off that energy. Don't give it to them. Talk to the person. Talk to the person and make the person understand what they're doing. Make them understand that they are simply serving a machine that doesn't serve them. But this is what I mean when I say be in a state of love, folks. I mean, don't be in a state of fear, because if you're not in a state of love, then you're in a state of fear. There is only two emotions.